Chapter 1800, Overclocking. Ripples appeared in Zhang Yi's everything under heaven, and the outer dimensional gate was actually peeled away layer by layer. He can break my dimensional gate with that kind of technique. Zhang Yi was shocked, but he did not hesitate to strike. Taking advantage of the opponent's distraction and breaking his dimensional gate, the power of the void in his divine refinement was condensed to the maximum. Star-piercing cannon. The purest and most powerful strike was directly aimed at Gui and fired. The oncoming attack made Gui unable to stop his own movements, and he had to deploy his own defensive force field to block Zhang Yi's attack. Neither of them dared to act rashly again, because they both had the ability to break each other's defenses. Gui stared at Zhang Yi, and his heart was also shaken. He had the means to deal with the ability of the space ability, because for their civilization, there was already a complete system for dealing with supernatural abilities. Therefore, there are corresponding countermeasures for all kinds of abilities. However, Zhang Yi's dimensional gate, under his space surge, after peeling away one layer, there was actually another layer, and after peeling away one layer, there was actually another layer. The gates of 3,000 realms formed 100 layers of defense around Zhang Yi. Even if he managed to tear open one, he was unable to rip them all open in a short period of time, and his attacks were unable to form effective killing power against Zhang Yi. In Gui's eyes, a huge spherical-like space appeared. This was the information he obtained about Zhang Yi's defensive field during the battle. In his eyes, it was a powerful space force field emitting a high-energy reaction, which prevented his attacks from passing through. After precise calculations, Gui quickly formulated a battle strategy. The red energy crystals on the blade of his sword continued to shine, and the ability of Space Surge continued to be released against everything under heaven. Layers of space were peeled away, followed by the high-energy shockwave released by the scorpion tail behind him. Zhang Yi sensed the danger. Once everything under heaven was broken, with his own defensive power, he simply could not block the opponent's white bishop-level attack. However, he would not take the beating lying down. Swish! For the first time, Zhang Yi moved his position. Space Shuffle sent him soaring high into the air, where he looked down on Gui from a commanding height. Then, a rain of bullets from the dual gun poured down. The shield-breaking spear contained two different types of bullets, which were enough to cause considerable trouble for Gui. Although they could not directly cause lethal attacks, as soon as flaws began to appear, they would usher in continuous weakening. Until his reaction slows down and his strength weakens, that is the moment when Zhang Yi will really attack. Gui faces Zhang Yi's attack, and the scorpion tail behind him suddenly lengthens, quickly circling around him to deftly block all the bullets. The sound of explosions rings around him, and the explosive power of the nuclear bullet is quite powerful. And after a hole appears in the defensive force field, Gui is unable to completely offset the erosion of this power on his body. His dark, tough armor could block the intense blasts at close range, but the constant shockwaves also disrupted his rhythm of attack. Suddenly, he slammed his feet on the ground, and then the entire person soared into the air. He charged straight at Zhang Yi. But no matter how fast he was, he could never be faster than teleportation. Zhang Yi had made up his mind. If the opponent had the means to break through the dimensional gate, then simply prevent the opponent from being able to lock his position. However, he has the ability of the second hand of time, which allows him to predict the opponent's movements, and keep his attacks focused on the opponent. As long as he can delay long enough, he will be able to wear the opponent down with the help of the astonishing amount of ammunition stored in space. Almost everyone who has fought Zhang Yi has experienced this terrifying process. No matter how hard they fight, they cannot break Zhang Yi's tortoise shell, but if they try to run, they cannot outrun Zhang Yi. Gui's heart began to feel some irritation. The subtle gap between him and Zhang Yi stemmed from the fact that Zhang Yi had already obtained some of his intelligence, while he had no knowledge of Zhang Yi's abilities. Having lost the initiative, he would always be one step behind in battle. The opponent's energy level has exceeded my prediction. If I cannot use the ability of Space Surge to tear through his defenses, I will not be able to effectively attack him. Therefore, I must increase the output power. Gue made this prediction in an instant. His arms had already become a blur as thousands of bullets struck his body every second. In Zhang Yi's dimensional space, the ammunition reserve could almost be described as infinite. Gue also knew that there was no point in continuing to expend it like this. A blazing light flashed in his eyes, a red light that was extremely unsettling. At the same time, a red crystal embedded in the end of the strange curved sword in his hand suddenly burst into flames like charcoal. A breath that made Zhang Yi feel tremble rose from Gui's body in an instant. That dark battle sword gave Zhang Yi the threat of death. The intelligence system also gave Zhang Yi a prompt in time based on the energy response, and the value of the ability index judgment made on Gui continued to increase from 32,000 points, and then climbed to 38,000 points. After Zhang Yi became a mutant, this was the second time he had seen someone who could, in an instant, obtain powers that far surpassed their own ability index. This was completely against reason. The last time was when Bian Zhenwu used Ice Soul and burned all of his origin to do something like this. This requires a huge price to pay. But the opponent was ruthless enough to choose this method to break Zhang Yi's defenses. The second hand of time in Zhang Yi's left eye was spinning furiously, and he had already seen the impending attack that would tear through his dimensional gate. Dazzling red light enveloped everything around him. It was an attack with powerful destruction capabilities. Gue raised the blade in his hand. At this moment, the black blade had turned a bright red, and the powerful energy burned and seethed like flames, illuminating the entire land. Even Liang Yu and the others, who were fighting in the distance, changed expression again and again when they felt this power. Without the slightest hesitation, Gue swung his sword back and plunged it directly into the void beneath his feet. Then terrifying red ripples spread out in all directions. Zhang Yi felt the space surge, and at this time, he didn't even dare to open the dimensional gate for a space shuffle. So, he chose to directly hide in a different dimension. If they were not also mutants with space abilities, they could not have found Zhang Yi in the parallel space as precisely as the Hades Gatekeeper and White Dragon did, or they would have had to be powerful enough to destroy the barrier of space. As a result, Gui's powerful attack, which cost him an energy crystal, fell completely short. He looked in shock at the empty space in front of him. His calculations had not predicted that the opponent could avoid his fatal blow in this way. A red energy surge spread out in the sky, triggering a huge storm. But it was only after a long time that Zhang Yi once again appeared in front of him from the void. I can't believe he had such a move up his sleeve. That was amazing, his eyes fixated on the weapon in the hands of the Gue, the curved sword in his hand, and the scorpion tail on his back, all of which were inlaid with these crystals containing powerful energy. Zhang Yi remembered that they were the most important component of the source of the super-large mechanical life form. Being able to instantly burst out energy that far exceeds one's own level of energy would, if one were a carbon-based life form, definitely cause great harm to one's body. But if it's a mechanical life form, or something like a cyborg, that's easy to understand. Zhang Yi was now certain that the guy in front of him had a mechanical body. Only this could reasonably explain why he could have a strong physique, move at super high speeds, and unleash powerful attacks at the same time. A combat-type mechanical life form? So mechanical civilization took a completely different path from the mutants? Zhang Yi's heart was filled with infinite exclamations. He and Liu Karen had once thought the same thing. The human body is actually no different from a robot. It's just that if there is a creator who made everything, it's obvious that he made humans, robots, too delicate and perfect, but also too fragile. But it doesn't really make a difference. Carbon-based life forms or mechanical life forms, as long as they exist in this world, they all have their own rationality. Zhang Yi was even more interested in him. If I can master this technology and create mechanical life forms comparable to Bishop's-level mutants, then wouldn't I be invincible? Then I wouldn't have to go out and risk my life every day, and I could just control them to fight from home. That would be so cool. Zhang Yi looked at the Gue in front of him, his eyes full of fervor. The Gue didn't know that he had already been targeted, but his calculations were already a little confused at this point. His calculation system could not tell him how to defeat this mutant with rogue abilities. According to the calculations, there was only one optimal solution at this time: to seek support from his companions. He could not escape, otherwise the mechanical civilizations project here would be difficult to continue. That matter could not be interrupted under any circumstances, because that was a major opportunity that their entire civilization had been waiting for countless years. Therefore, Gue did not hesitate and sent a signal to his companions for help. A fair one-on-one duel? Sorry, this is war, and winning is what matters. As a cyborg, he doesn't have any so-called awareness of strength. At this moment, Jussenberg, who had been thrown a long distance away by Zhang Yi, looked blankly at the scene in front of him. The terrifying demon god who had treated him like a toy had actually managed to draw with chaos. Chaos of the Huashu Kingdom. Could it be that his strength is already sufficient to rival Morana? Jussenberg's mind raced with this thought, his blue eyes wide. At this time, Brahma's troops arrived belatedly, rushing from afar to provide support. Emperor Indra was unable to contact Jussenberg at all using his communication equipment, but when he was far from Alto City, he could sense that a battle had already broken out there. Both the roar of the battlefield and the powerful energy fluctuations were conspicuous as a prairie fire. We're too late. Emperor Indra already knew that Zhang Yi and the others had arrived, so he wasn't too surprised by this. Azura glanced at him and said, "Isn't this even better? With them here, our chances of winning this battle are even greater." He knew very well how strong Zhang Yi was. Emperor Indra's brows furrowed slightly. "However, do I need their help?" He sneered, "I only resent them for taking resources that should belong to us. Right now, I'd rather they weren't here, and let us have a good fight with those mechanical life forms." Azura said no more, knowing how stubborn Emperor Indra could be. But soon, as if in response to him, the earth in front of the train suddenly caved in. The driver reacted quickly and made an emergency turn, preventing the train from plunging underground. Immediately afterwards, an enormous mechanical arm poked its way out of the ground, scraping the edge of the earth before emerging in front of them. A super-large mechanical life form, it was in front of the Brahma train, like a stark contrast between a crab and an earthworm. Emperor Indra saw this scene and a sneer curled the corner of his mouth. Just in time. He of course chose to accept the supplies that had been delivered to the door. But before he could finish laughing, two more super-large mechanical life forms crawled out from under the collapsed earth. The Brahma mutants' faces had already turned a bit pale. In that case, it would be a bit difficult. But if they fought to the death, they could still win, even if many of the mutants would probably have to die. Emperor Indra jumped directly out of the car, stood above it, and displayed his magnificent 3 reincarnations Dharma. "It seems that the main force of the mechanical army is here. Haha, I understand now, Chaos must be in a lot of trouble. In the end, I have to rely on me." Emperor Indra reached out proudly, and his supernatural powers manifested into a heavenly exalted parasol in his hands. Facing the 3 super-large mechanical life forms, he raised the heavenly parasol in both hands, and a golden torrent spurted out from the end of the parasol, like a golden sword, and charged straight at the first super-large mechanical life form. However, the terrifying energy was suddenly stopped by an invisible force when it got close to the super-large mechanical life form. Although it destroyed the ground, it did not harm the super-large mechanical life form in the slightest. Emperor Indra's pupils suddenly narrowed. How could this be? Something was very wrong. Although the mechanical life forms had a defensive force field, after several battles and the exchange of intelligence between the mutant troops of various countries, they had gradually discovered ways to deal with it. Even if Emperor Indra's blow of Catholic-level power could not destroy a super-large mechanical life form, it would not be possible for it to have no reaction at all. At this moment, a special existence suddenly appeared in his field of vision. It was the head of the super-large mechanical life form in the middle, which was too small in comparison, and so Emperor Indra had not noticed it at first. It was a dark humanoid creature with 6 mechanical arms, holding in its hands an incredibly heavy hammer shaped like a mace.